Hey guys, Ethan here with Westcott Designs. Today we are installing our slimline 4Runner roof rack. We're going to go over all the installation tips and pointers for you guys so you can help get this on your own vehicle at home. So this will be the hardware bag that you're going to receive with your Westcott Designs 4Runner roof racks. You can see here, there's all the parts you're going to need. The bottle openers here. These are going to be the standoffs to keep the brackets up above the roof. You're going to install those in the factory hole locations. This here is your furthest back bracket. This is your middle bracket. And this and behind our bottle openers here are going to be your very front brackets. And these are all your hardware bolts and nuts for the side crossbars. All right, so we have the roof rack all laid out right here. We like to build the rack kind of as a whole before we put it onto the vehicle. In the modular and the slimline roof racks, you're going to receive 9 crossbars, not including the crossbar attached to the visor. On our modular racks, if you order the insert panel option, that will come with the 10th crossbar to totally mount all of the floor panel inserts. All right, guys, we're ready to start assembling our roof rack here. Typically how I start this is at the very front with the visor. I'll throw a bolt in here. Just get this gently started. You can leave it loose, get it into place. And we normally leave these all hand tight until they're all put together. But that way it kind of stays up nice in the way. You're going to want to leave off the very first crossbar because it does cover the brackets that mount to the roof. So you'll leave that one out until you have these brackets installed on the roof, and you'll add this in basically as the very last step.
Compressor mounts.
Yes.
We make those, don't we?
We do for one vehicle. All right, so you can see here we got the roof rack basically assembled with all the crossbars and the side slats. If you come around here, you can see the rearmost crossbar. We put 2 holes in right here. So you'll leave this rear one vertical. This will clear the antenna vertically. If you keep it this way, you'll probably end up running into the antenna. So we designed it this way just for that little bit of clearance and kind of a couple more options if you want to do a chase slider or whatever you feel like you want to add on to this thing. All right, guys, so these are our mounting brackets. These are going to attach to these inner side panels of the roof rack. The elongated ones are going to sit right here in the back. These guys are going to be your middle mounts, and the longer 2 with the sticky tape are going to be for the very front. These 2 you can leave off for now, but these 4 you are going to want to loosely install onto the rack before you set it up onto the vehicle. So you can see here on the rear bracket, this longer section is going to go inward towards the vehicle. The hole spacing is different, so there is no way to incorrectly install it, but we just wanted to make sure that you guys notice that that longer portion goes inward. All right, guys, same thing on this one. You can see here the holes only line up one way. So there is really no incorrect way to install this. It's only going to go one way, and make sure, of course, these are on the inside of the rack. You are going to want to leave these bolts loose so you can slide this back out of the way to access the roof bolts. All right, guys, we are going to now remove the factory roof rack. This is the TRD Off-Road SR5 Venture Style roof rack. We will try to get you some more information on the Pro Styles, but for now, this is the rack we're going to be removing. So you are going to want to use a clipper, popper clip tool. If you don't have one of these, maybe a really wide flathead might do it, but we do recommend doing this. You can see on the back side here, there's kind of a little lip. We're just going to stick this guy in here. It's going to be a lot of cracking and popping, but it'll pop right off. All right, guys, so underneath those covers we just removed, you are going to see the mounting bolts here. There's going to be 2 per corner. These are hooked up by one little bracket. That little bracket kind of teeter-totters. So you're going to want to definitely do these with a hand tool. Do not use a power tool. And you're going to kind of want to walk them evenly back and forth. You know, give one a few spins. Now go back over to this one. If you take one all the way out and then try to break loose the other, it'll end up cracking the little mounting plate inside, in which case you're gonna have to go through the headliner to replace. So this will definitely be a foolproof way for you to get this apart without any issues. Do not get rid of these bolts. We are going to reuse them for installation. And you're going to want to repeat the steps on the front and of course the other side of the vehicle. All right, so once you have your bolts removed, you can basically just pop these guys straight off. They're really lightweight, but you'll go ahead and remove these. I love sweaters though. All right guys, so we normally go through here and kind of clean all the dust and grime out of these things before we install our roof rack. One, just for a clean look for the customer, but two, you're gonna wanna make sure there's a nice clean surface for when you apply the RTV or silicone sealant to prevent any leaks. All right guys, now we're gonna want to go ahead and lay down some of our silicone sealer. This is just a standard black RTV. You can use the clear as well. We just use the black in here. We normally lay a little bead right around the hole here on each one of these guys before we place our standoffs on here. This will definitely help prevent any leaks or rain or snow or anything else getting into the vehicle. All right guys, once you got your silicone laid down, you can grab the standoffs. These will slide right over the little white hole, little plastic portion around these guys. You can see here, this will be a nice seal. Now arguably this would be plenty to prevent any leaks or anything, but we do like to go through and add an extra little dab of sealant on the inside just to be safe. You'll kind of build up with the threads and give yourself that little bit more insurance. All right, so again, we'll always go through and dab just a little bit of sealant here, just kind of toss it on the edge for now. The bolt will grab it and kind of bring it in with the threads a little bit, but it's just a little bit more insurance for any chance of leak or anything. But we've been lucky enough to not have to have any phone calls or experience with the leaks yet, so. All right guys, now that you got the rack loosely assembled and your standoffs installed, we're gonna go ahead and throw the rack up on the 4Runner. Now remember, with these brackets loose, you're gonna wanna be gentle with setting it down. We place these brackets right onto the standoffs and we will reinstall with the factory hardware. That corner. All right guys, now that you have the roof rack up on the vehicle, you're gonna wanna go ahead and reinstall these factory bolts. You are gonna wanna utilize the rubber washers that they come with. This is a 12mm head bolt, so you're gonna wanna grab a 12 and a long extension. We find it a little easier with a ratchet versus a wrench, just for the ease of swing in here. All right guys, so this is probably gonna be the first step in actually snugging up the bolts. So while you're going ahead and tightening these are still gonna be loose. You know, we did crank them down just a little bit, but everything else on the rack is loose. So you'll go ahead and make sure that this is sitting flush up against the rack and go ahead and tighten these guys all the way down. Again, you're not gonna wanna torque them too hard because they are on a bracket inside of there. It's not a hard nut. All right guys, next step, you're gonna wanna install the frontmost bracket. You are gonna have to trim the weather stripping in here. It's pretty easy to trim it and get it fitted right. Basically, you're gonna have to just use your eyes here, line up the holes as best you can. Obviously, it's not gonna sit low enough to line up, but you can get an idea of exactly where it's gonna sit. You can go through with you know, something you could even use a pen, a knife, whatever. I usually mark just about an 1/8 inch wider than the bracket itself to give me a little bit of room to play. But we'll go ahead and pull this weather stripping out all together. And now we'll go trim. All right guys, so at our cut marks, you're gonna wanna get a big set of snips. You can even use a larger set of dikes if you need, but we usually prefer a heavy duty snip just for a nice clean cut. Go ahead and get that guy snipped out of there. Find our other cut line. Now we're good to go. All right guys, so we're gonna go ahead and reinstall these strips. We're just gonna do this quickly for you, just kind of as a visual. One thing that's definitely nice to do for those guys that may have bent the weather strip a little bit. Sometimes when you bend them, they don't go quite back into place, so they don't really sit into the wedge well. You can go through and add a little bit of sticky tape if it doesn't sit into the spot well. Right now, we're gonna see how this one sits. A lot of times they squeeze in there nicely, they don't go anywhere. This one looks a little loose, so we're gonna add some sticky to it. All right guys, once you have your weather strip cut and you have the sticky surface area beneath it clean, you're gonna go ahead and remove the cover from the double-sided sticky tape on our provided bracket. Again, you're gonna wanna kinda line up the holes visually, get it right into place. And we kinda just lay them back in, let it stick in its spot, and the holes will line right up. All right, everybody, now that you have your frontmost brackets installed, we're gonna go ahead and reinstall this last crossbar that we left off that we mentioned in the beginning of the video. You could still access these nuts with a wrench, no problem, underneath this crossbar, but we like to get this on there first so we're not jamming it down in once the bolts are all tight and this rack is nice and squeezed. All right guys, so the next step, we're gonna go ahead and now tighten up all of our side mounting bolts for the crossbars. That'll kind of get everything nice and square before we go ahead and tighten all the mounting hardware. We do prefer hand tools on these just because they are a smaller Allen size. I believe it's a 5/32. And just one thing we wanted to remind everybody, these crossbars are aluminum, so you're not gonna wanna crank these too hard down. Just a little bit of torque on them and they're gonna hold together for a long time. All right guys, now we're gonna go ahead and tighten up all the mounting brackets to the side panels. This is going to be a 3/16 Allen and a 13mm or 1/2 inch wrench. Now, if you kind of watch it as I slowly tighten it up, I'm not going to crank it too hard, but a lot of times it'll get that rack right into a little bit different of a position, right where it needs to be. All right guys, now that the whole roof rack is all tight, you got all your mounting hardware and all the crossbars tight, the very last step and the most important step, the bottle opener. You're gonna wanna get a 3/8 wrench and a 1/8 bit for this thing, an Allen bit, and get these bad boys on. Now we've only included one washer per bolt with these guys. The washer is going to go on the back side with the nut. The front side will just be the bolt alone. All right guys, now that we got these bottle openers on, we got the rack all tight, your Westcott Designs roof rack installation is all set. If you guys ever have any other questions, always feel free to give us a shout in the office. But this is the beauty here. And again, this is our slimline 4Runner roof rack.